We're 9 months away from a very significant increase in prices if there isn't a weather event in Europe. So the trouble is, when we have this ridiculous increase in costs, I'm a member of the Global Farmers Network, and that's a global issue.
Weather can wreak havoc for Irish tillage farmers, but even in bad years, we usually get a reasonable harvest. That's not the case everywhere. In some countries, drought can wipe out an entire crop. But what happens if this is repeated for several years? Building resilience both on farms and in the supporting businesses becomes essential. If not, then the entire industry can be in trouble. You're listening to the latest episode of the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. If you're enjoying the series, we'd really appreciate it if you could follow the podcast and leave a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. In this episode, we rejoined a conversation with Jim McCarthy, who farms a large tract of land in Romania. If you missed the opening part of this conversation a couple of weeks ago, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to this first. We rejoined the conversation when I asked Jim about the reduced cultivation system and if this different method has resulted in problem weeds cropping up.
Well, the Romanians have a love affair with ploughing, like Irish people. I would say there was a tiny percentage of land ploughed for wheat last autumn. It was all missed. And there's a huge growth in Mintil.
Sure.
There's a huge growth because people can't afford it. Now, let me quote you an example. When we were growing a lot of sugar beet, 2019 was our biggest sugar beet year. We were organically farming nearly 2,000 hectares, and we were conventionally farming. We used 112 or 14 litres of diesel per hectare. The sugar beet was taking 135 to 40. The organic farming was taking 94, right? And the 60 to 70 from conventional. We're down now, Michael, with no-till. We're running between 48 and 51 litres. Now, if you take on 16,000 hectares, 50 litres of diesel is 800,000 litres.
That's a lot of money, a lot of an increase with the recent increase anyway.
Well, our busiest months for diesel are April and May. All the seeding, all the spraying. We need 200,000 litres. From the 1st of February till the day we started seeding, that 200,000 litres. Now we can store 180,000 litres because the oil companies give out wonderful 25,000 litre tanks there. We had a free of charge. Our bill went up. We had to pay out 160,000 euros more. Thankfully, we've reduced our fuel consumption from the beet,
Sure.
Overall consumption down to 60 litres a hectare,
It's a massive change. And speaking of that and of use of diesel, I suppose going something different, you showed me, I suppose, late last year that you've started using drones to do some of the spraying. Why are you doing that?
Well, if you want to buy any kind of a decent high clearance crop sprayer, you're looking at for 400,000 or 500,000 euros. Our most profitable rotation, Michael, is soybean, followed by wheat, followed by 2 corns. Okay?
Yeah.
Because we not allowed GM crops, the second corn, you'll have a big problem with European corn borer if you don't kill the flies when you're tasseling the year before.
Okay.
And it's 10 litres of water with a drone does just the most amazing job. The ground will be littered with dead flies. Okay, so that's the thing. It's very economical. We would do, if we were troubled with late insects in this rape, we would do the same, and definitely do the sunflowers with the drones. We've got the service trailer built where we have all the mixing and water downstairs in the generator, and then upstairs the drones could land in and out and go. And the guys, with 2 young guys, they will do 550 acres in a long day with them.
You have two drones working together. Give us an idea of the size.
They're 65 litres.
Right.
So we'll be spraying between 8 and 10 litres when we're spraying insecticide. We'll be spraying 12 litres when we're spraying fungicide. Now we've changed them and we've gone to 100 litre drones.
Oh, 100 litre drone. So roughly speaking, in terms of dimensions, they're 8 feet wide, square. How big are they?
6 feet, 7 feet.
6 feet.
And
Okay.
they fold up, Michael, with a container and the transport.
Sure, with the rotors out though, they're still a fairly impressive machine with the rotors out.
The technology is wonderful. They're geo-fenced. For instance, if it's going to run out of battery, it won't allow itself. It'll return to the base before it run out of battery.
In terms of those young guys who were running, or your staff, how difficult was it for them to get into the training and for them to figure it all out and that kind of stuff? Was it fairly intuitive or
We have two guys internally who are technology whizzes because
okay?
we're doing a lot of variable rate seeding. All our tractors, we have a wonderful Trimble software for field, for organizing the field work with the tractors, with the GPS. So we have great people internally who are doing this, and it's been no trouble to them. They're just fantastic.
I suppose it's normal. Are you the pioneer with this now in the area, or is there
No,
other
no,
people?
no, no,
No?
no, 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 no. There's quite a bit of a move to this, and the Romanian
Okay.
government have facilitated. A lot of governments elsewhere won't do it
No.
because there's a crisis in agriculture here, and they're trying to give farming every help it can get.
Speaking of the crisis is there, as you mentioned before, what's happening locally with with farmers around it? Are they sowing as much? Are they, where are they at?
Well, where the industry is at a huge crossroads, Michael, because we had very severe droughts 22, 23, 24. We had a wonderful year in 21, and when farmers get money, they spend it. Quite a few farmers had made a lot of money and borrowed a lot of money to expand and to grow. We had three very severe droughts. In the 3 years, we missed out on a full year's rain, dropping prices. So the retail trade the input retail trade reckon that from 22 to now, there's 1.2 to 1.4 billion euros they haven't collected. Huge amount of small input suppliers have gone under. And the three big ones, only they're, two of them are stock market listed, they wouldn't survive either.
Wow.
They've all been through a huge time, and the Cortevas and the Syngentas and all this world, they've taken a lot of pain because the suppliers they were supplying went under, and they were owed money as well. So this has been a very and like what the merchant trade tell me today, that there's 20-25% of farmers who can't access input credit.
Wow.
The banking thing, the banks, there's 5-6 huge farming companies that were huge grain buyers and input retailers, and those six have gone down for €1 billion. So the crisis is pretty staggering here. I mean, it's so sad when you drive around with this lovely crops of wheat after the wet winter, and you go around and you see a big block of wheat, and it's got no nitrogen because the man can't access credit.
And will you be seeing, do you think, as well as that, will you be seeing unplanted fields because there's no money for it at all?
I think everyone will get to plant with sunflowers because sunflowers will grow with very little inputs.
Okay.
I think that we're going to see an enormous increase in our part of Romania in the sunflower hectares. In the south of Romania, they'd got after the 3 years of heat and drought. The rape crops and the wheat crops had done very well in the south because they got wetter winters, but they got heat and drought in the summer. So 85% of their crops are now wheat and rape, grape, and barley. And so that up here, we're still growing a lot of corn and sunflowers. Right?
Right.
But to give you an idea overall, Romania used to grow 3 million hectares of corn. This year, they reckon it'll be 1.56. So basically in the southern half of Romania, unless there's irrigation, there's no corn.
Wow, that's an enormous tonnage because obviously I presume that corn is the big tonnage hitter.
But here in Badashan, all the farmers, the generation out there, corn where we make our money.
Does this mean Southern Harvest are going to double, triple in size over the next little while? Take advantage of what's going on?
We'll keep an eye on the ball. We'll keep an eye on the ball. Well, look, Mike, we're up at 20,000 hectares, over 20,000 hectares. It takes a lot of working capital. And in these hectares, when it goes good, it's wonderful. But when it goes bad, it's very unpleasant because
Yes.
the amount of money
Sure.
involved.
Yes, big money either ways, for sure.
And you just got to be sensible,
Yeah.
being sensible.
And if you were to look at the larger, I mean, you're over in that part of the world, a little bit further from the borders, from Romania to Bulgaria, or maybe a bit further afield. I don't know whether you have a view on what's happening in Ukraine at the minute, where they're at, because it's all a bit tricky over there. Is it similar, or is it different in different countries, or are we all loads of people in trouble because of the droughts and the bits and pieces?
It's different in different countries. The issue we have, Michael, that we all have, is that the world is currently awash with grain. The Americans will sell in the grain trading season with at least at least 50 million tonnes of maize left over from last year. The good news for us Europeans is that the safrina, the corn in Brazil, is not meeting good weather, and that will reduce. But we're a good bit away. We're 9 months away from a very significant increase in prices if there isn't a weather event in Europe. So the trouble is we have this ridiculous increase in costs, and there isn't something immediate on the horizon and that goes for. I'm a member of the Global Farmers Network, and that's a global issue. Everyone's budget is thrown out the window, and this is where we're at. We bought urea back in November at 530 euros a ton. Today, in this market, it's 800, 850. And for instance, Michael, with 3 months, there is no credit for fertiliser. If you want fertiliser, you pay cash.
Okay.
Margin's too small for the input suppliers.
And your view on that fertiliser, from kind of what I'm hearing, the thinking is that next year is not going to be pleasant for fertilisers because of the capacity that's been lost.
Well, Michael, 50% of the world's sulfur comes down the Strait of Hormuz. So to make DAP, to make all the sulfur products, there's a big issue. But what people don't realize is that nitrogen is gas. Can you see the nitrogen going to fertilizer or to heat Europe for the winter? And so that's why it would be very painful. And that's why, Michael, would you believe it, we have in our cornfields, we have a trial going on in 3 cornfields where we're putting no fertilizer. We're putting completely biological products. The manufactured biological products, we've been trialing for the last 6 or 7 years. As far as I'm concerned, the only one in that 6 or 7 years that made money from them was the fellow who sold them to me. They're very unreliable and generally are very slow to pay more than what they cost, generally, right? There's very few success stories. But what we're seeing with this compost tea on our high organic matter fields, well, it's a different story. Because we have, like, if you take 1% organic matter, you have in 1% organic matter, you have about 1,100 kilos of nitrogen. I have fields with 6% organic matter, which means I have 6 tons of nitrogen stored out there. But what's even better is on these soils that were formed from the West, there's a huge amount of phosphorus, but it's not available to plants. And microbial activity is the only way it'll be loosened up. So from that point of view, we're looking at this a lot more carefully because we have really cut our costs and our fixed costs. We've one tractor for 1,600 hectares. We're changing the whole 1,600 acres. We're changing the whole combine system and seeder system. And so we're trying to find ways of freeing up what's underneath our feet. And it's by microbial activity we'll do it all.
It's an interesting journey, as you say. That
we put now 2 15-hectare blocks into a 120-hectare field. The 2 15 hectares got biological product before seeded. We didn't put any seed coating on the seed. We seeded with the biological product, and we'll get 2 sprays of biological product afterwards. And then around it, we have seeded the corn with 2020 and sulfur. And let's see how it goes.
Experimentation continues in every farm and every place where it's, that's what it's all about, trying to see where the next change is, I suppose.
It's the old and true saying, and a man is never judged by the answers he gives, but rather by the questions he asks.
Now you said it. If
I could go on to the machinery thing, a slight diversion here. There's a huge change in large-scale agriculture and machinery. You have 220 ton euro wheat in Ireland. I have 175 euro ton wheat because I've got to go 450 k's to a ship for most of it. Okay, this thing about the price of machinery, we've started changing. We were running the biggest case combines of 600 horsepower. Last year, into the Balkans came one of the new case combines. They have this New Holland range and case range, 800 horsepower.
Right.
Big problem is we had to change all the cutter bars. So one thing is buying a very expensive combine, but the cutter bar, the standard cutter bar now, these combines are fitted with either 15 or 18 meter cutter bars to use up the 800 horsepower.
Yes.
That putter bar is €180,000. So our biggest maize header, because we're in 50 centimetre rows, was 18 row, 9 metre. We need 12 metre, 24 row. 220,000 for the European built one. And we bring him out of South America for the coming season at 95,000.
Okay.
All our no-till seeders will come out of South America now because they're 40 to 50% less and better built. And what I'm saying is that there has to be in the whole thinking on farms, on machinery, at these grain prices and other input prices, there has to be a whole rethink on machinery and the capital cost of machinery. So this is what we're looking at.
So if that was an Irish farmer, they would be thinking, for the most part, that's all well and fine, Jim. But what if that machine goes wrong and a yoke breaks on it? Where's the backup for any of that kind of stuff? How do you cope with that, I suppose?
Well, because we have our own dealership spec workshop. And with all these companies now, I mean, we have a very well-stocked workshop, Michael. About 80% of it, the parts of the shelves are not ours. They're bench stock. The machinery suppliers put the stock on our shelf. They come once a month and they charge us for what we've used.
Okay. Right.
And that's the way it has to be. So we buy these headers. We will get every piece we could possibly need put on our shelf, and we pay for them as we use. Well, they're giving 3 years warranty for the first 3 years.
Right.
Same with the seeders, and they will put the parts on the shelf. And this is the way it has to be.
Yes.
So the world is changing, and buying the big, really fancy stuff at these grain prices, it's not a runner.
Well, certainly for sure, with the cost increases in machinery over the last 5 or 6 years has just been phenomenal, like way out of kilter, I suppose. It's hard
Since COVID, the machinery manufacturers lost the run of themselves. The big four just lost the run of themselves. Let's think of a price and we'll charge it. The Ukraine war was the big catalyst of this, because the market price went to a price that was not justified by the stocks of grain in the world, and that is the problem.
And that will continue to be the problem, I think, Jim. And until we get that increase in grain price, that has to come to match all the other costs. I think not just the farmers where you farming as well, and everybody else around there. I think everybody that's growing tillage crops are going to be worldwide, I would imagine, including Ireland.
Well, I quote a friend of mine, Michael. If you told me 10 years ago, I'm very familiar with Australia because I was involved there for a long time, 50% of the cars sold in Australia last year were Chinese built. The world is changing and we have to change with it. And you'll see the Chinese, because they're really focusing on their agriculture, as the American soybean growers about it. They're really focusing the money they've been spending with 20 years on research and development and building target research institutions and doing the research, and they're now building the machinery. And you will see more and more of that as well.
The world is changing, Jim, and we've had a great conversation. So listen, Jim, always a great to chat to you and to get your perspective of the world. And it's always different, I suppose, in here in Ireland, and extremely interesting. Thanks very much, Jim.
Thank you, Michael.
So that's it for this week and the conversation with Jim. And a huge thanks to Jim for joining me on the show. So as usual, if you enjoyed the podcast, then recommend it to a friend or colleague. And as always, rate, review and follow on Apple or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.